The story starts by introducing a girl named Juk Kong, who was often teased and made fun of because of her looks. Her family and friends constantly joked about her appearance and things weren't better at school. Her older sister and younger brother were both attractive, and she was an easy target for bullies, especially because of her acne. Even when she started high school, the teasing continued. One day, Park Se-mi and her popular group started picking on Juk Kong, and to make matters worse, a girl named Ji-mi, who also didn't fit the beauty standards, was forced to help Se-mi's group. Ji-mi didn't want to be bullied, so she recorded Juk Kong crying after school. Juk Kong couldn't stop thinking about how badly her friends treated her. She found herself in a restroom, staring at her reflection, wondering if she was so ugly that she didn't deserve friends. Overwhelmed with sadness, she even considered going up to the rooftop to end it all. Fortunately, something stopped her. She saw a billboard about a celebrity named Chong Se-on who had taken the same drastic step. At that moment, a handsome guy named Suho noticed her on the rooftop and rushed over, worried she might be planning something harmful. Juk Kong stumbled and accidentally fell into Suho, but couldn't see his face clearly because she wasn't wearing her glasses. Suho, who seemed to have experience with troubled people, scolded her and told her there was a better way to handle things. Juk Kong felt grateful that Suho had intervened. He even helped her get a taxi home. Back at home, Juk Kong discovered that her father had been tricked by his business partner, leaving the family with a huge debt of 500 million won. This caused a major argument between her parents, and they were forced to sell their apartment to cover the debt. Meanwhile, Suho lived a very different life. He was the son of a wealthy businessman and lived alone in a fancy house while his father was abroad, but despite the luxury, he felt lonely. Feeling frustrated with how she looked, Juk Kong decided to try makeup tutorials online, hoping to improve her appearance. However, things went wrong, and she ended up looking worse. Her classmates mocked her even more, so she talked to her mom about switching schools. Surprisingly, her mom agreed, especially since they were moving back to their old house. Juk Kong and her younger brother would transfer to a new school. Before starting at her new school, Juk Kong used her savings to buy makeup and practiced until she got better at applying it. She even switched to contact lenses instead of wearing glasses. On her first day at Seum High School, her new look caught everyone's attention. When she went to the teacher's office for some paperwork, she was surprised to see her younger brother there, and even more surprised when Suho walked in. She didn't recognize him at first, but she felt drawn to his looks. At school, Juk Kong introduced herself as the new student, and her classmates warmly welcomed her, impressed by her beauty. A girl named Choi Sua invited her to be friends, and soon Juk Kong found herself hanging out, eating, and having fun with her new friends. She even took pictures with them, feeling happy and accepted. Later that evening, Juk Kong ran into Suho at the comic book rental shop. They both reached for the same comic, and Juk Kong accidentally fell on top of him. She was nervous that he might recognize her without her makeup, so she quickly got up, handed him the book, and introduced herself as Chubal. The next morning, Juk Kong put on heavy makeup again, thinking about how Suho didn't recognize her the night before. She hurried to school with her sister, Andy. At school, she bumped into Suho again, but was relieved when he didn't mention the incident from the previous night. After school, she went shopping for makeup, and by chance, ran into Se-mi's group. Despite her new look, Juk Kong tried to avoid them by running away, still haunted by the memories of being bullied and treated poorly. At the end of the street, something unexpected happened. A motorcyclist almost ran into Juk Kong and fell off his bike when he suddenly stopped. He left his helmet with her and ran off with his friends, hiding in a parking lot as they were being chased by some troublemakers. Juk Kong, not wanting to get involved, decided to leave and unknowingly took the helmet with her. Back at home, Juk Kong's mom, Yumuk, was watching the news about the return of Un, the head of the artist agency Entertainment and Juk Kong's boss. The news then switched to Jun, who went to visit his son Suho at a training place. They hadn't seen each other in a long time. Suho seemed unsure about meeting his father, who had cheated on his sick mother, who had passed away. After losing a sparring match with Suho, Jun asked if they could live together again, but Suho remained silent and left. At the comic book store, Juk Kong ran into Suho again, and he mentioned that he remembered her. She thought he had found out about her makeup, but he was actually referring to their earlier meeting on the rooftop. Juk Kong asked him to keep her secret, and Suho, thinking she meant the rooftop incident, agreed on one condition. She had to help him find an old comic book he was looking for. One day while on the bus, Juk Kong received compliments from people who admired her beauty because of her makeup. However, a guy secretly snapped a photo of her. Suho's colleague, Suene, was also on the bus and caught him, chasing after him until he was caught. When they reached school, everyone went wild because H. Sojuman had returned after being away. Juk Kong recognized him as the guy who had left his helmet with her. She soon learned that, apart from Suho, Sojun was also a popular student due to his good looks, though he seemed a bit arrogant. Suho and Sojun used to be close friends before falling out over something, and Suene was the only one Suho talked to regularly. That afternoon, Juk Kong planned to give Suho the old comic book he had been searching for and invited him to the school rooftop. But when he showed up, he seemed distant and didn't recognize her as the girl from the comic book store. Juk Kong began to wonder if Suho didn't remember her without her makeup, but she had slipped a thank you note into the comic book, hoping it would hint at her secret. Later, while studying with some classmates, Juk Kong avoided eye contact with Suho, still wondering what secret he might know about her. That night, Suho called Juk Kong and asked her to deliver something to a certain place. She was surprised and worried about how he had gotten her phone number. When she asked about the item, she couldn't decide whether to meet him as her natural self or as her made-up, beautiful version. Eventually, she chose to put on makeup and wear a helmet, while carrying the comic book Suho wanted. When they met, Suho revealed that he just wanted the comic book, but he had also prepared a drink for her, so she couldn't leave right away. Juk Kong decided to go to the restroom to remove her makeup before returning to Suho. It was then that Suho admitted he got her phone number from the comic book store owner, which made Juk Kong feel relieved, knowing that he didn't recognize her as his classmate. The next day, during class, Juk Kong's friends were celebrating Sua's anniversary with her boyfriend when Juk Kong accidentally got hit by a cake. Her face ended up messy with cream, and her friends wanted to help clean her up, but she refused, scared they'd find out about her makeup. Suho stepped in, covering her head with his uniform and guiding her to the restroom. Luckily, Juk Kong always had her makeup with her, so she fixed herself up quickly. Her friends were amazed by Suho's sudden helpfulness. That evening, Juk Kong and Suho met at the comic book store. When Suho asked about her school, Juk Kong lied, saying she went to a school far away and would soon be moving abroad with her grandmother. But things took a turn when Suho revealed he had gotten both Juk Kong's and Chu Ball's phone numbers from a classmate, exposing her true identity. He even took off her hair tie and glasses to make sure it was really her. Then Juk Kong's mom arrived and called her by her real name, asking her to come home. Feeling embarrassed, she hurried out. Back in her room, Juk Kong realized her friends were getting closer to discovering her secret as the unattractive girl she used to be. A few days earlier, Suho had stumbled upon her secret when he opened a package with the comic books she had given him. He heard her crying in the restroom as she washed her face before their meeting. Juk Kong felt down, especially since her mom and older sister seemed distant. She thought about confronting Suho and even threatening him to keep her secret. The next day, she prepared herself to talk to him before class. Instead of threatening Suho, Juk Kong knelt down and begged him to understand her secret as an unattractive girl. She promised to do whatever he asked. After that, she started treating him kindly and even made food for him after school. So Jun met with Juk Kong to return the helmet she had been holding for him, and she promised to bring it the next day. Meanwhile, outside the school gate, Hyung was waiting for her younger sister when she noticed an issue with the tire of Juk Kong's teacher, Junwoo's car. Hung seemed interested in him and immediately offered to help change the tire. She even jokingly asked for a reward, and they arranged to have dinner together. They got to know each other and exchanged phone numbers. At home, Juk Kong asked her younger brother about Sojun's helmet, but she was surprised when Juk Young said he had sold it. He thought she didn't need it anymore since she had said it was found by the roadside. Juk Kong explained that the helmet belonged to Sojun and insisted that it needed to be returned to avoid trouble at school. Later, Sua messaged Juk Kong asking her to bring a comic book to the park. Unfortunately, the comic he wanted had been borrowed by another boy, so Juk Kong tried to convince the boy to let her borrow it. Since she couldn't return the helmet, she gave Sojun an apology letter, which made his friends think he had received a love letter. Meanwhile, Juk Kong's life became busier as she started working as Suho's assistant, always tired from the various tasks he kept asking her to do. When she came to school looking exhausted, Sujin started wondering if Sojun had been bothering her, especially after seeing Juk Kong apologize to Sojun. Sujin confronted Sojun and his friends, warning them that she wouldn't stay quiet if they were causing trouble for Juk Kong. At the same time, Juk Kong, who had created a new social media account, was surprised by the praise her photo received from many people, including Seimi and her friends. While she was reading the comments, Suho messaged her asking her to bring the comic book he wanted. Despite the rain, Juk Kong went to fulfill his request, but she slipped and was teased by a group of drunk guys. With her leg hurting and her clothes soaked, she finally met Suho and expressed her annoyance at him for making her run around in the rain. Suho felt guilty and gave her his jacket, asking her to wait while he looked for medicine. He showed concern for Juk Kong, and Sojun, watching from a distance, saw the incident, but didn't realize the girl with Suho was Juk Kong. At school, Sojun finally noticed how close Suho and Juk Kong had become. To make Suho jealous, Sojun started getting close to Juk Kong in the cafeteria. This led to a fight between Suho and Sojun, which resulted in mild punishment from the school. The school didn't want to prolong the issue, especially since Sojun was about to represent the school in a math competition. During this time, Sojun remembered his past, which fueled his hatred for Suho. He blamed Suho for his friend's death, who had done something unthinkable due to depression. Meanwhile, Juk Kong's friends suspected that Suho and Sojun were fighting over her attention. Kim Chong and Sojun's other friends, who didn't like Suho, wanted to teach him a lesson, but Sojun stopped them before they could act. Later, Suho and Sojun were assigned the punishment of cleaning the basketball court together. During this time, Suho tried to explain what happened the night of Sion's death, but Sojun refused to listen. After their punishment, Suho went to the comic book store and reminisced about his childhood when a girl always comforted him. He didn't realize that the girl was Juk Kong. Presently, Juk Kong visited the comic book store and saw Suho looking sad. She encouraged him to open up about his problems, feeling grateful to him for not revealing her secret to others. Suho then told Juk Kong not to feel bad about her looks. Back at school, Sojun, curious about their relationship, asked Juk Kong if she was dating Suho. Before she could respond, Suho stepped in and told Sojun not to bother her. Meanwhile, Hung was still waiting eagerly for Junwoo to invite her to dinner. She even waited at the cafe in front of Subum High School, hoping to meet him inside. During break time, Suho told Juk Kong that there was a guy interested in dating her, though neither of them knew who it was. Suho overheard their conversation and decided to follow Juk Kong home after her date. On the bus ride, Juk Kong explained that she was going on a blind date to make it look like she had a boyfriend. She didn't want to be stuck in a love triangle with Suho and Sojun. At the hospital, Sojun was picking up Mi Young, who was finally being discharged. Mi Young was happy to see Sojun, especially since he had taken time off from school to take care of her. They went to Yunsu Salon, an old friend of Mi Young's. Juk Kong was surprised when she saw Sojun and his mother there, so she put on a face mask since she wasn't wearing any makeup. They all chatted, and Mi Young asked them to keep an eye on Sojun, who had a reputation for being a troublemaker. The next day, even though it was a holiday, Suho and Suene were representing the school at a math Olympiad. Meanwhile, Juk Kong was preparing for her date and secretly borrowed clothes from Hyung. When she arrived at the movie theater, she met a guy, but little did she know Suho was also there, keeping an eye on her. He discovered that Juk Kong was only going to be the guy's mistress after their date. When Juk Kong returned home, Yoon-suk mentioned her intention to set up her second daughter with Sojun. Juk Kong explained that the helmet belonged to Sojun and insisted that it needed to be returned to avoid trouble at school. Later, Sua messaged Juk Kong asking her to bring a comic book to the park. Unfortunately, the comic he wanted had been borrowed by another boy, so Juk Kong tried to convince the boy to let her borrow it. Since she couldn't return the helmet, she gave Sojun an apology letter, which made his friends think he had received a love letter. Meanwhile, Juk Kong's life became busier as she started working as Suho's assistant, always tired from the various tasks he kept asking her to do. When she came to school looking exhausted, Sujin started wondering if Sojun had been bothering her, especially after seeing Juk Kong apologize to Sojun. Sujin confronted Sojun and his friends, warning them that she wouldn't stay quiet if they were causing trouble for Juk Kong. At the same time, Juk Kong, who had created a new social media account, was surprised by the praise her photo received from many people, including Saemi and her friends. Juk Kong was surprised because she had always thought Sojun was a spoiled troublemaker. Meanwhile, Junwoo couldn't sleep at home as he was thinking about Hyung's dinner invitation. Although he didn't want to get close to women, he tried to find a way to decline the invitation by offering to send her some money as compensation for not being able to go. The next day at school, Juk Kong intentionally took a photo of Sojun on his motorcycle, planning to send it to Mi Young. However, Sojun pretended to share a picture of Juk Kong wearing a face mask at the salon, leading to an argument between them. Suho, watching from a distance, seemed jealous as he saw Juk Kong and Sojun growing closer. Later, Juk Kong told Suha that the guy she had been on a date with had broken up with her. Suho overheard the conversation and sighed, having warned the guy the previous night to stay away from Juk Kong. After school, Swain invited Juk Kong and others to study together, where Suho also joined. Swain noticed a change in Suho's attitude since he got to know Juk Kong and became more curious about their relationship. After studying, they all decided to go to karaoke. Although Suho preferred to watch his friends sing, not long after, Juk Kong went to the restroom and saw Sojun's motorcycle parked near the karaoke place. She tried to find him and ended up helping Sojun, who was almost attacked by some bullies. Suho saw this happening and got worried, rushing to help her. Unfortunately, he got surrounded by the bullies and had to fight them off. That night, Sojun walked Juk Kong home and Suho waited at the end of the alley to make sure she got home safely. After seeing Juk Kong inside, Sojun and Suho had a conversation, and Sojun admitted he had feelings for Juk Kong. At school, Sojun and Juk Kong became even closer, and people started gossiping that they were dating. Sojun even handed over his motorcycle keys to Juk Kong in front of a group of students, saying he'd do whatever she asked. Suho, not liking how close they were getting, asked Juk Kong to distance herself from Sojun, but Sojun kept getting closer, making Juk Kong uneasy. She asked him to back off, but Sojun was persistent, boldly declaring in front of everyone that he'd parked his motorcycle in front of her house, catching her off guard. Another time, as Juk Kong was walking down the school corridor, she saw some core members hassling a student named Hun Go-un. Go-un was a talented singer, but didn't have what some people considered an attractive face. Juk Kong, having faced bullying herself due to her appearance, felt sorry for Go-un and wanted to help. After school, Juk Kong and Swain took the bus home together. They saw Saemi and her gang on the same bus, and Juk Kong got nervous because she was afraid Saemi might recognize her true face under all that makeup. To her surprise, Saemi recognized Juk Kong as a popular girl on social media. Swain noticed Juk Kong's discomfort and quickly pulled her off the bus. Since Swain didn't know who Saemi was, she advised Juk Kong to be more assertive and express her discomfort with others. That evening, Juk Kong got ready with makeup because Suho had invited her to meet at the park. Even though Suho had seen her without makeup, she still wanted to look nice for him. They played basketball, and Suho used the chance to get closer to her. As it got darker, Swain walked Juk Kong home, and they saw Sojun's motorcycle still parked outside her house. Swain asked for Sojun's motorcycle keys, planning to return it later. Juk Kong was getting tired of a group of students picking on Go-un. She finally took action by splashing them with dirty water and warned them that they had crossed the line. Swain also stepped in to help scare them off and make sure there was no more bullying at school. Later, when Go-un felt down on the school rooftop because of the bullying, Juk Kong went up to encourage her. While waiting for the bus to help Go-un with the school music event, Juk Kong was looking up makeup tutorials. Suho showed up at the bus stop and noticed she was watching them. He casually said that she looked even prettier without heavy makeup, surprising Juk Kong. She began to wonder if he had feelings for her. When she got home, Juk Kong shared this on an online forum and got advice to test Suho's feelings by inviting him to the movies. She asked him out, and he accepted, which made her believe he really liked her. Meanwhile, Hung, who had been turned down by Junwoo multiple times, asked him out for dinner. Junwoo seemed a bit nervous at first, but became more comfortable as they talked. Later, the Sabum High School Festival arrived, and Juk Kong used her makeup skills to transform Go-eun, who was singing at the event. With her beautiful voice and new look, Go-eun became the center of attention, receiving praise from the students. Go-eun thanked Juk Kong and was grateful for her help. At that moment, So-jun approached Go-eun, surprising Juk Kong when she found out that So-jun was Go-eun's older brother. As the festival continued, Juk Kong couldn't help but feel down because Suho had suddenly distanced himself and canceled their movie plans. She was confused by his change in behavior and asked him why. Suho admitted that his kindness before was just out of pity for her. This left Juk Kong in tears, feeling let down. It seemed that Suho had pulled away after So-jun had told him the previous night that he didn't deserve to be happy because of Seon's death. At the festival, a student sang a song written by the late Seon, who had passed away when her career was just beginning. Suene expressed her dislike for the song since it had caused tension between Suho and So-jun. As Suho heard the song, painful memories about Seon's death resurfaced. When Juk Kong tried to comfort him, he pushed her away. Later, Juk Kong decided to go home and remembered to return Suho's jacket that she had borrowed. She noticed a logo on the jacket and realized that Suho was the one who had saved her from a difficult situation. She hurried to find him because she wanted to help him deal with his guilt about Seon's death. After locating Suho on the rooftop where Seon had died, Juk Kong tried to calm him down as he cried in distress. Later, Suho, feeling more at ease, returned home and had a talk with Junwoo, who seemed to be trying to mend their relationship. Junwoo told Suho that he would come to Sabum High School the next day to look at Suho's report card. Back at home, So-jun asked Go-eun when she had met Juk Kong. Go-eun explained how Juk Kong had helped her when she was bullied, which made So-jun angry. However, Go-eun advised him not to seek revenge. On the day the report cards were distributed, Yoon-suk met with Junwoo to discuss her daughter's grades. Junwoo, who was Juk Kong's class teacher, informed Yoon-suk about Juk Kong's poor academic performance, which worried Yoon-suk about her daughter's future. After a long conversation, Yoon-suk realized that Junwoo lacked confidence because of his thin eyebrows. Hung suggested Junwoo visit her salon to get eyebrow tattoos for a more natural look. Outside Sabum High School, many parents and teachers were excited about Junwoo's visit. When Yoon-suk saw the crowd, she felt lucky to meet her favorite artist and momentarily forgot about Juk Kong's grades. On the other hand, So-jun seemed unhappy about Junwoo's visit, remembering how Jun's agency couldn't protect Seon, his artist. Turning to Suane, who was chatting with Juk Kong, she confessed to feeling jealous of Juk Kong's family. Even though she came second in school, her father never praised her achievements. That night, Suane's father, Dr. Kung, scolded her for not surpassing Suho, who was first in their class. Dr. Kung always pushed his daughter to excel academically and follow in his footsteps to study medicine. At Juk Kong's home, Yoon-suk, frustrated with her daughter's poor grades, considered throwing away Juk Kong's cosmetics so she would focus on studying instead of makeup. Juk Kong begged her mother for a different punishment as long as she didn't have to part with her makeup. A few days later at school, Juk Kong seemed to be avoiding talking to Suho, even during their physics practical sessions. Suene noticed their odd behavior and suspected something was wrong between them. After school, Go-eun invited Juk Kong to a cafe to thank her for helping. She also asked Juk Kong to teach her makeup, so they quickly went to Go-eun's place after buying supplies. While Juk Kong was teaching Go-eun makeup, So-jun, who didn't know about the guest, walked out of his room in just his underwear, startling everyone. Embarrassed, So-jun hurried back to his room. Later that evening, So-jun accompanied Juk Kong home and thanked her for boosting his sister's confidence. Meanwhile, Suho arrived at a comic book store just as Yoon-suk was searching for Juk Kong, who hadn't returned home yet. Yoon-suk realized Suho was Junwoo's friend and invited him over for dinner. When Juk Kong returned home, she was surprised to find Suho there. Juk Kong asked if Suho and she were close at school, but she admitted that they weren't really close friends. The next day, which was a holiday, Hung invited Juk Kong to a sauna, but unexpectedly, So-jun and his friends were there. Juk Kong, without makeup, tried to avoid them and convinced her sister to leave the sauna with her. On their way out, Hyung, who was hungry because she hadn't eaten at the sauna, asked Juk Kong to buy food at a convenience store. There, they ran into Semi and her gang again. Juk Kong faced harassment once more, but luckily Suha witnessed the situation and came to her rescue. However, Suho's kindness confused Juk Kong because he had previously shown no interest in being close to her. Switching to the salon, Junwoo finally went in for the eyebrow tattoo procedure as Yoon-suk had suggested. Hyung was surprised to see Junwoo at her mother's salon, and that's when Junwoo realized that Hyung was Juk Kong's sister. In a hurry, Junwoo left the salon even though it was raining, prompting Hyung to chase after him with an umbrella because she wanted to find the man she liked. A few days later, Semi and her troublemaking group suspected Juk Kong was So-jun's girlfriend, and they planned to kidnap her to lure So-jun and force him to surrender. Suho also got wind of the kidnapping plot, so they headed to the karaoke place where Juk Kong was and confronted the troublemakers. Suene and others arrived to help after Juk Kong informed them. The next day, all of them gathered in the teacher's room because the school had received a report about a fight at the karaoke place involving Sabum High School students. The teachers weren't suspecting Suho and So-jun. Meanwhile, Junwoo received a bouquet of flowers from Hyung, who was trying to win his affection before leaving town. That night, while Juk Kong was studying with her friends, Suha invited her to watch a baseball game to meet a famous player she knew. On their way home after studying together, Juk Kong was surprised when the leader of the troublemakers, Aeong-yong, apologized to her. This happened after Suho had warned Se-yong not to bother Juk Kong anymore, and even went to Se-yong's house to report his behavior to his father. One evening, Juk Kong and Soo-jun had dinner at a restaurant. Suene showed her irritated hands from excessive hand-washing when stressed from studying. Juk Kong was puzzled by her mother, who kept pushing her to be the best in school. During their conversation, Juk Kong also shared that she had been a victim of bullying at her previous school. Sometime later, the exams ended, and Juk Kong went to watch a baseball game with Suha and Tun. After the game, Suha, who knew the famous baseball player Yang Jin, invited Juk Kong to meet him. Yang Jin, captivated by Juk Kong's beauty, asked for her phone number, but Suho suddenly showed up and advised her not to give it out casually. Jealous, Suho decided to practice baseball to look cool in front of Juk Kong, unaware that she was already walking with Yang Jin. At school, the exam results were announced, and Suene and Juk Kong were disappointed with their lower rankings. Unexpectedly, Yang Jin caused a stir at Sabum High School when he personally invited Juk Kong to his final game the next day. So Jun and Suho seemed unsettled by Yang Jin's presence as he tried to get closer to Juk Kong. After school, Suho received a confession from a female student but turned her down, revealing that he liked someone else. Juk Kong, who overheard this, became curious about the woman Suho had feelings for. When Juk Kong got home, she was shocked to discover that all her makeup had been thrown away by Yoon-suk because her grades were still declining. Juk Kong cried and pleaded with her mother to recognize her efforts in studying and not throw away the things that meant so much to her. Feeling that her mother didn't believe in her, Juk Kong continued to keep her past experience of being bullied at her old school a secret. That night, while crying, Juk Kong searched for her discarded makeup items, and Suho approached her to apologize for his distant behavior. To comfort her, Suho took Juk Kong to a comic book store to chat, and even offered her new makeup items to lift her spirits. While walking her home, Suho also gave her a hairpin, making Juk Kong feel confident that Suho liked her. Meanwhile, Suene, whose school performance had dropped, faced consequences from her mother, Kang, and seemed disappointed in her lack of support. The next day, Swain vented her frustrations to Suho, who consistently outperformed her academically. Suho, aware of the punishment Suene was receiving from Kang, tried to comfort his childhood friend. Unbeknownst to them, Juk Kong witnessed this, and mistakenly thought Suene was the girl Suho liked. As a result, Juk Kong began avoiding Suho and refused to sit next to him. She felt hurt, believing that Suho had given her false hope, and struggled to sleep while trying to move on from her feelings for him. Meanwhile, Deem visited Junwoo's apartment to confirm his feelings for her. Junwoo, who saw her as the perfect woman, finally accepted Hyung's feelings, and that night they spent time together at his place. On a school holiday, Sojun asked Juk Kong for help in choosing a suitable gift for Goan. When Suha found out, he rushed to the mall to pick her up. So, Jun tried to keep Juk Kong from leaving, and the three of them ended up getting stuck in an elevator. When the elevator finally opened, Juk Kong, frustrated with both of them, decided to go home alone. Outside the mall, Yongjin arrived to take her home as snow began to fall, leaving Suho and Sojun stunned as they watched. The next day, Sojun and Suho attended Yongjin's baseball game, believing that Juk Kong would be there to watch the players she liked. However, Juk Kong wasn't in the stands because she had rejected Yangjin, explaining that she liked someone else. So, Jun, who met Suho at the game, confessed that he had come there specifically to find Juk Kong, which further fueled Suho's anger. Later, Saboom High School organized a camping trip in the mountains. Juk Kong prepared various items and methods to hide her unattractive face during the trip, planning to stay up late and wake up early to do her makeup. Hung accompanied her younger sister to the departure point and looked for Jun Woo. Unfortunately, just as they were about to hug, Juk Kong appeared, and they decided against it, especially since they were still keeping their relationship secret from Hyung's family. Soon after, Juk Kong and other students were mistaken for being in a relationship with Sojun because they were wearing matching shirts on the bus. Sojun also sat next to Juk Kong, making Suha feel jealous. At the campsite, Juk Kong and her friends in the same tent discussed Swain, who was Suho's childhood friend. They teased her, suggesting she might be in a relationship with him, but Swain denied it. The students had a good time, but Suha, who wanted to be with Juk Kong, felt disappointed when he saw her on the same team as Sojun during a game. Another time, a campsite security guard told a horror story about a haunted well where the spirit of a woman, rejected by her husband on their wedding night, haunted the area. Meanwhile, Juk Kong and Suha didn't talk to each other during the trip. At the same time, Hyung was working on a tribute album project for the late Seon, a former artist from Move Entertainment, to commemorate the anniversary of her death. Unfortunately, Eli Jun rejected the project, seeing Seon as a stain on the agency's reputation because of her past actions. Hyung had previously asked Sojun for help in finding a song composed by Seon that hadn't been released, but Sojun refused to assist after feeling disappointed by how the agency treated his friend. Director Oh also revealed to Juk Kong that he would sabotage Hyung's project. During the camping trip, Juk Kong and Suho went to a lake to enjoy the scenery, but Juk Kong accidentally fell into the lake, getting soaked and ruining her makeup. On their way back to the tent, they saw Sojun's friends wanting to visit the haunted well near the lake. Juk Kong left Suha behind and ended up falling into a hole near the well, her face covered in mud. Sojun's friends, frightened, mistook her for a ghost. Sojun, arriving later, also fainted upon seeing her in her white clothes covered in mud. After spending the night in wet clothes, Juk Kong fell ill and asked to skip the camping activities. Sojun, worried about her, found her sleeping on the bus and gave her medicine, trying to make Suho jealous after noticing Suho was planning to meet Juk Kong on the last night of the camping trip. That night, Sojun performed in an idol competition and sang beautifully on stage, impressing all the students. However, Juk Kong felt jealous when she saw Sojun and Swain getting close. Later, Tun, realizing that Suho and Juk Kong liked each other, arranged a meeting for them by the riverside. Unfortunately, Swain met Sojun first, leaving Juk Kong heartbroken. Later, Sojun came across a tearful Juk Kong after she confessed her unrequited love for Suho. Though disappointed, Sojun tried to comfort her. Meanwhile, Suho misunderstood the situation, thinking that Juk Kong preferred Sojun. When Juk Kong returned to the tent with her makeup ruined, her friends were concerned. Juk Kong quickly covered her face with a cloth when she saw Suho suddenly arrive, trying to hide the fact that she wasn't wearing makeup. Suho found her and confessed his feelings, giving her a necklace. Juk Kong, who had liked him for a while, accepted his love, still without makeup. Later, she bumped into Swain and asked her to keep the secret. Swain promised to keep Juk Kong's secret from their friends and helped her return to the tent safely. After returning to school, Juk Kong always tried to avoid Suho because she didn't want their relationship to be discovered by his fans, who might bully her. Suho suggested a date at a cafe far from school, but unexpectedly, Cha-rong and others showed up at the cafe. Suho, trying to hide his face, crouched under the table, making Cha-rong curious about who Juk Kong was meeting. Later, Juk Kong went to a mall for a Selena makeup artist event, where she even won a quiz. In the evening, Juk Kong visited her mother's struggling salon, where Yoon-suk expressed her determination to support Juk Kong's education, Meanwhile, Juk Kong's father, Jae-pil, received unexpected news about the man who had scammed him being spotted somewhere. Back home, Juk Kong found a post-graduation study plan form and started thinking about pursuing a career in makeup artistry. Unfortunately, private beauty lessons were expensive, and she couldn't ask her mother for help. Yoon-suk, who often came home drunk from work, finally arrived home. Juk Kong helped her older sister answer a call from a number saved under a different name in Yoon-suk's phone. When Jun-woo realized Juk Kong had answered the call, he immediately hung up. After everyone had gone to bed, Jae-pil secretly left for JJ Island to find the swindler who had taken his money. The next morning, Yoon-suk was shocked to find a farewell letter from her husband, explaining that he was on a mission to recover their lost money. At school, rumors started circulating about Juk Kong having a boyfriend, which piqued Sojun's curiosity, leading him to wonder if Juk Kong was dating Suho. That evening, Juk Kong and Suho planned to go on a date to a comic book store. But their plans were disrupted when Go-eun started working part-time there. Meanwhile, Hume felt irritated when she saw Jun-woo at a store with a woman named Reen and introduced herself as Jun-woo's girlfriend, which seemed to upset Jun-woo since their relationship was supposed to be secret. Back home, Juk Kong made a decision after some contemplation. She completed her post-graduation study plan and chose the Department of Cosmetology at Hungo University as her preferred field of study. The next day at school, Suain saw Juk Kong asleep while wearing the necklace that originally belonged to Suho. This made her wonder if Suho had given the necklace to Juk Kong. After school, Juk Kong started looking for a part-time job to cover the cost of her beauty lessons. During her job search, she unexpectedly ran into Sojun, who was working part-time as a model for a photo shoot. The photographer noticed Juk Kong's beauty and asked her to model alongside Sojun after the original female model quit. After learning about the good pay for the job, Juk Kong agreed and joined Sojun for the photo shoot. At the same time, Suho's family invited Swene's family to a dinner, intending to discuss business matters. Suho, not interested in the event, brought Swene along, telling everyone they'd be studying together. At the cafe, Swene, who had feelings for Suho, became jealous when she saw how enthusiastically he answered Juk Kong's call. Later, Juk Kong, having just finished her photo shoot, invited Sojun to eat with her. During their meal, she revealed that she was dating Suho, but asked Sojun to keep it a secret. Sojun, still harboring feelings for Juk Kong, felt frustrated upon hearing this. Later that night, while Suho was walking home, he accidentally met Jae-pil, who was lost and confused after getting scammed by a fake travel agent while trying to find the swindler on JJ Island. Suho, feeling sorry for him, offered Jae-pil a place to stay at his house, bringing them closer. The next morning, Suho left for school and Jae-pil promised to clean up Suho's house before leaving. After school, Juk Kong began her part-time job at a cafe that Sojun had recommended. That evening, she shared her experience with Suho, and on her way home, she accidentally got her clothes wet when a car splashed water on her. Suho kindly invited her to his house to dry her clothes. Unexpectedly, Jae-pil, who hadn't returned home yet, saw Juk Kong heading to Suho's place, so he hid under the table. When Suho tried to kiss Juk Kong, Jae-pil intervened, and Juk Kong left with her father, who scolded her all the way home. Jae-pil also asked Juk Kong to keep his stay at Suho's place a secret. Juk Kong and Suho both agreed to keep their relationship a secret. When they got home, Yoon-suk scolded Jae-pil for falling for the fake travel agent scam so easily. A few days later at school, Juk Kong was going to tell Suene about her relationship with Suho, but changed her mind when Suene revealed she had feelings for Suho. Hearing this, Juk Kong became silent and unsure about her relationship with Suho. She even asked for advice online, torn between love and friendship. Eventually, Juk Kong decided to confess to Suho, telling him she felt unworthy of him and thought he would be better off with someone like Suane, who was both beautiful and smart. Suho, however, misunderstood her and thought she was upset because of Jae-pil's disapproval of their relationship. Meanwhile, Hume tried to get Jun-woo to open up about his feelings, as he was still angry about certain issues. Juk Kong, who had feelings for Go-eun, visited a comic book store hoping to see her. While there, she saw Sojun bringing food to Go-eun, leading Juk Kong to think they might be dating. Another day, before heading to work, Juk Kong went shopping with Swain to buy a gift for Suho. Swain also mentioned that their families had a dinner to discuss business, which made Juk Kong even more unsure about her relationship with Suho. The next day, Suho visited Juk Kong's house with a gift for Jae-pil as an apology for his previous behavior. Later, while Juk Kong was at a cafe, she was surprised to find Sojun working there to cover for a sick colleague. After finishing work, they took the bus home together, with Sojun claiming he wanted to pick up Go-eun from the comic book store, but really just wanted to be close to Juk Kong. During the ride, Juk Kong shared her dilemma about choosing between love and friendship, and Sojun advised her to consider ending the relationship, as love doesn't last forever. When they arrived at the comic book store, they ran into Yumuk, who invited Sojun to join her for a meal. Later, Sojun was surprised to see Suho helping Yumuk make dumplings at Juk Kong's house. They ended up competing to show off their dumpling-making skills to impress Juk Kong's parents. On another occasion, Suho was in Juk Kong's room and finally recognized her as his childhood friend from the comic book store when he saw her childhood photo. Meanwhile, Hume was shocked when her colleague took over a project that Seon had abandoned. She suspected someone of plagiarizing Seon's work for commercial gain. A few days later, photos from Juk Kong and Sojun's photo shoot were posted on social media, and Chong and his friends teased them about being in a relationship. Suho felt disappointed because Juk Kong had kept her part-time modeling job with Sojun a secret. Juk Kong explained that she had gotten the job by accident while looking for part-time work. Suho then asked her to distance herself from Sojun, believing that close friendships with the opposite sex can often turn romantic. This made Juk Kong question Suho's past relationship with Sujin, his childhood friend, leaving Suho silent. One evening, Sujin visited Suho's house to deliver a gift she had bought with Juk Kong. Suho didn't seem happy about Sujin's presence, even though Sujin insisted on staying longer and answering a call from Juk Kong while Suho went to get drinks. When Suho returned, he declined the gift from Sujin to avoid misunderstandings about their closeness. Sujin was disappointed, especially when Suho asked her to leave. The tension between Suho and Juk Kong grew, especially after Suho saw Juk Kong getting close to Sojun at work. A few days later, Move Entertainment released a song written by Seon for another singer, which surprised Suho. Sojun was also angry at the agency for using Seon's work without crediting her. Hume was disappointed in Junwoo for his actions, especially after learning that the rumors about Seon's bullying were just a cover-up for a scandal involving a young artist. Hume pressured Junwoo to pull the song from the market. Outside Junwoo's office, Suho overheard their conversation, which deepened his disappointment in his father. Suho decided to leave the office and cross the street without paying attention to traffic. Sojun, who witnessed this, tried to warn him, but they both ended up getting hit by a passing car. They were rushed to the hospital with Suho suffering a broken leg and Sojun injuring his arm. At the same time, Juk Kong visited Sujin's house to share the news that she and Suho were now in a relationship. She wanted to make sure that their love wouldn't hurt their friendship. Suene, who couldn't win Suho's heart, reassured Juk Kong not to feel guilty. Later, Juk Kong learned about the accident involving Suho and rushed to the hospital, embarrassed and covering her face since she wasn't wearing makeup. When Juk Kong saw Sojun, who had also been in an accident, being treated in the same room as Suho, they had a chance to talk. Juk Kong apologized and promised not to hurt Suho's feelings. Meanwhile, Jun was upset because he didn't know that his father had plagiarized Seon's song. He also didn't realize the rumors about Seon being a bully were deliberately spread to cover up Jun's own scandal. Back at the hospital, Suho and Sojun discussed Jun's involvement with Seon's work. The next day at school, Juk Kong told Sujin about Suho being in the hospital, which caused Sujin to panic. Unbeknownst to Juk Kong, a new student named had transferred to Sabum High School because she had been bullied by S. In the teacher's room, Suane accidentally overheard a conversation about the new transfer student from Juk Kong's old school. She smiled as she watched Am leave the room and head to her new class. Meanwhile, Sei-mi and her group seemed to be plotting something about Juk Kong, who was rumored to be dating Sojun. At the hospital, Suho rejected Junwoo, who had come to visit him, and even stopped his father from seeing him. On the other hand, Sojun was happy when his mother visited and helped him with his meals. The friendship between Suho and Sojun started to improve as they were forced to work together in the hospital. Another time, Sujin brought Suho's personal items to the hospital and thanked Sojun for trying to save Suho from the accident. One day, Hume and Junwoo went on a date at the cafe where Juk-kong worked. They decided to leave the cafe, and Junwoo admitted that he didn't want Juk-kong to know about his relationship with Hume because it made him feel conflicted. At the same time, Hume was upset because her younger sister was secretly working part-time. After finishing her shift, Juk-kong rushed to visit Suho at the hospital. So Yoon stepped out of the room to give them some privacy. While they were talking, Chong and some of Sojun's friends came to visit. Juk-kong quickly hid under Suho's blanket to avoid being seen. Outside the room, Ju-young, who had brought food for Suho, ran into Go-eun, who was visiting her older brother. During their conversation, Ju-young discovered that Go-eun was Sojun's younger sister. Inside the hospital room, Sha-rong and the others wanted to stay and take care of Jun, but Sojun tried to stop them because he knew Suho was hiding Juk-kong under his blanket. The next morning, Hume walked with Juk-kong to school and asked why she was often coming home late. Juk-kong confessed that she was working part-time to save money for private beauty lessons. One day, Hume secretly took pictures of Juk-kong with her friends as instructed by Se-mi. Swain caught her in the act, which frightened Hume. Jun admitted that he didn't know about the rumors surrounding Sion, but Suho seemed indifferent. Suho experienced a panic attack when he remembered his father's past actions. Later, when he met Sojun outside the treatment room, Ju-hun learned that Suho had helped Seon create the song. This prompted Ju-hun to visit Suho's house, where he discovered a music room. He realized he was responsible for the pain Suho had endured and the deaths of the people Suho loved. Meanwhile, Sojun started to realize that Suho wasn't completely to blame for Seon's death. He apologized to Suho for accusing him and decided to end their friendship. At Suji's house, Kang scolded her for skipping private lessons, especially with exams approaching. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Suho confided in Juk-kong about his strained relationship with Jun since his mother passed away. Later, Suho was discharged from the hospital and learned that Jun had resigned from Move Entertainment, causing losses and protests from many artists. Suho remembered moments from his past with Sojun and Sion. The next day, Suho invited Sojun to visit Sion's grave, and they appeared to make up. Sojun even carried Suho, who was still recovering from his leg injury, to avoid trouble with some thugs. Back at Suho's house, they discussed Juk-kong. So Jun mentioned that Juk-kong's insecurity in her relationship with Suho was because of his closeness with Sujin. At school, Sujin tried to talk to Hume to get information about Juk-kong's old school, but Juk-kong noticed and asked Sujin to leave. Meanwhile, Chong and the others were happy that Suho and Sojun had reconciled. Soon after, Suho informed Juk-kong that her recent photo, submitted for a school beauty contest, was getting a lot of positive attention on social media. Suho asked his friends to vote for Juk-kong so she could beat Se-mi, the candidate from Yonga High School. Juk-kong was worried about the contest, especially because she couldn't delete her photo from social media until the voting ended. One day, Swain tried to talk to Suho, but he chose to be with Juk-kong, which hurt Swain and made her jealous. In her anger, Sujin invited Hume to have a meal with Juk-kong and asked if Juk-kong had attended Yonga High School. Juk-kong, feeling uneasy, said she hadn't gone there and pretended not to know Hume. Later that evening, Juk-kong met Suho at the comic book store to give him some items and suggested he try to mend things with Yoo-hun so he wouldn't regret it. Later, Suho tried calling his dad again, as Juk-kong had advised. Meanwhile, Sojun, seeing Juk-kong's photo in a high school beauty contest on social media, finally showed his support. The next day, the voting ended, and Juk-kong was declared the winner of the beauty contest, earning the title of Beauty Goddess. However, Juk-kong felt tired because she suspected Se-mi might not take her loss well and might try to get revenge. Suho also found it strange that Juk-kong didn't seem happy about winning the contest. As Juk-kong was heading home from school, Se-mi approached her in front of Seum High School's gate. Se-mi was curious about the winner of the beauty contest. She didn't realize that the now beautiful Juk-kong was the same student she used to bully. When Ami showed up, Se-mi started bothering her because she wanted a picture of Sojun, who she had a crush on. Juk-kong stepped in to help Ami get away from Se-mi. Meanwhile, Suwain became curious about Saemi's previous school and teamed up with her to bring Juk Kong down. Sujin told Saemi that Juk Kong, now the beauty goddess, was the victim of their past bullying. This all happened a few days after Juk Kong won the beauty contest. A teacher asked Juk Kong to do a photo shoot as the school's model for banners. At first, Juk Kong was unsure because she wasn't the best student, but with encouragement from her friends, she agreed to do it. Meanwhile, Suwain wasn't happy about Juk Kong's success. During lunchtime, Suwain received some old photos of Juk Kong from her time at Yonga High School from Saemi. In return, Suwain gave Saemi pictures of Sojun. Suwain, who had previously let go of Suho, now tried to win him back. However, when she confessed her feelings again, Suho, who considered her just a friend, turned her down once more, breaking Suwain's heart. Later that afternoon, Juk Kong and Suho were still at school looking for Juk Kong's lost necklace when they unexpectedly found Hume and Junwoo together in the teacher's room. Hume couldn't keep their relationship a secret anymore and admitted she was dating Junwoo. On another day, Juk Kong felt really happy when she saw her photo displayed at the school gate as a symbol of Sabum High School's outstanding student. However, as she walked through the hallway, she noticed her friends were treating her differently, and some were making fun of her. When she got to the classroom, she discovered that a video of her being bullied by Saemi and her group had been shared, making her friends feel like she had deceived them with her makeup. Juk Kong felt trapped as her secret was out, and even Suwa didn't support her, despite being bullied by Suho's fans, who forced her to remove her makeup. Thankfully, Suho arrived and stopped his fans, and Juk Kong quickly left the school. Sojun also learned about the rumors after Ju-hun showed him the video that had spread throughout the school. Meanwhile, Ju-young, unable to stand his sister being insulted, confronted some students who were talking badly about her. Go-won, who witnessed this, quickly stepped in and advised Ju-young not to get involved in such situations. Junwoo, realizing that Juk Kong wasn't at school, suspected that she might feel uncomfortable because she was secretly dating his sister. Sojun, meanwhile, decided to confront Saemi, who was suspected of spreading the video where Juk Kong was bullied. Saemi admitted to sending only the photos and videos to Swaini. Sojun then went to talk to Swain and asked her to delete the video before Suho found out. He warned her that her actions could harm her reputation because she was acting like a bully. After meeting with Swain, Sojun asked his friend to help find out who had posted the video on the school forum. Meanwhile, Suho was busy searching for Juk Kong in different places, but still hadn't found her. At home, Yunso became frustrated when she received a package meant for Juk Kong, thinking her daughter was spending too much. She also discovered evidence of Juk Kong's makeup course registration in her room. Meanwhile, Juk Kong, who had spent the entire day on a bus, was told to get off at the final stop. Later that evening, Suho, still searching for her, decided to wait outside her house. Sadly, when Juk Kong finally came home, she refused to see him. She looked exhausted as she listened to Yun-suk scold her. Her mother didn't approve of her attending a makeup course, thinking it had no future. When Yun-suk asked Juk Kong to refund the course fee she had earned from her part-time job, Juk Kong tearfully said that no one had ever understood her feelings and locked herself in her room. Inside, Suene smiled as she read negative comments about Juk Kong on social media. She was confident that Juk Kong would eventually leave Sabum High School. However, she also noticed some comments expressing regret for the person who posted the video, realizing it had hurt others. Feeling guilty about Juk Kong not being at school, Junwoo brought up the idea of taking a break from his relationship with Heem, at least until Juk Kong graduated. Heem found this unreasonable, especially since Junwoo brought it up in the middle of a busy city. A few days later, Jun's assistant approached Suho to apologize and beg for forgiveness on his behalf. He explained that Ju-hun had genuinely been unaware of Seon's death case. Suho also received a message from Ju-hun, who wanted to meet him before leaving Korea. At school, Junwoo and the teachers finally learned about the bullying video Juk Kong had endured at her previous school. Juk Kong expressed her disappointment to her classmates, who didn't seem to care about her suffering. Meanwhile, Suho tried to take down all the flyers with Juk Kong's photo that had been posted around the school. Sojun eventually tracked down the student who uploaded the bullying video to the school forum. This student had also been bothering Go-won. Sojun asked them to delete Juk Kong's video and warned them not to bother his younger sister again. That evening, Junwoo gathered the courage to meet Suene and ask her if she was the one who spread the bullying video. Suene admitted it, explaining that she was upset Juk Kong was dating Suho. Junwoo then called Yoon-suk to the school to discuss the video. After seeing the video, Yoon-suk felt guilty, and the whole family was concerned about Juk Kong. To lift her spirits, Yoon-suk took Juk Kong to a cosmetic doctor to address her acne problem, but the doctor suggested plastic surgery, which Yoon-suk opposed. After several days of Juk Kong not going to school, Suho asked her to meet him at the comic book store. He tried to encourage her to be more confident in facing everything she was going through. Meanwhile, Junwoo, who didn't really want to break up with Heem, planned to meet her, but changed his mind when he saw her with a wealthy man. At the same time, Suho couldn't meet Junwoo, who had already arrived at the airport and was preparing to fly to America. Suho invited Junwoo to have dinner together once he returned to Korea. The next morning, Yoon-suk was preparing breakfast and asked Ju-young to call Juk Kong to come eat. Surprisingly, Juk Kong had already left for school without any makeup on. When she got to school, she ignored the teasing from her classmates. Some students even praised her for her courage, though Sua still hadn't forgiven her for not being honest. Juk Kong boldly confronted the students gossiping about her, telling them to mind their own business. She even confidently declared that she was Suho's girlfriend, which made Suho proud. He hugged her and kissed her on the forehead in front of everyone. Outside the school gate, Juk Kong's family waited in the car, relieved when Jian told them Juk Kong was okay. Meanwhile, Sua had recently found out that Suene was the one who spread the bullying video about Juk Kong. When she saw that Suene wasn't sorry and even told Juk Kong to change schools, Sua decided to make things right with Juk Kong. She was also disappointed in Suene for what she had done to her friend. On the other hand, Ju-young was still trying to win over Go-won, but she remained distant, leaving Ju-young heartbroken. He confided in Sojun about his feelings. Another time, Sojun, who still had feelings for Juk Kong, was seen watching her sleep in the music room, reminiscing about their time together. When Juk Kong woke up and saw Sojun, she thanked him for helping her get the bullying video removed. After school, Suho and Juk Kong went out together and by chance saw Heem being harassed by Sami. Juk Kong, feeling confident, decided to stand up to Sami, leading to a fight that Churong had to break up. After that, Juk Kong and Sua invited Heem to join them for a meal, marking the beginning of their new friendship. At home, Yoon-suk supported Juk Kong's decision to take makeup courses and even gave her makeup tools. Juk Kong felt happy and got busy with her courses, often missing calls from Suho. One evening, Suho and Sojun attended a live street music event where Sojun performed a song composed by Sion. Everyone was mesmerized by his performance. That night, Suho hoped Sojun would return to the entertainment industry, but Sojun didn't pay much attention to his advice. Instead, he asked for permission to confess his love to Juk Kong, even though he knew she would turn him down. Sojun was determined to express his feelings so he could finally move on. After the school exams, Suho took Juk Kong for a walk, while Sujin began to rebel against Kang's excessive cruelty. Meanwhile, Dam saw Junwoo heavily drunk at a bar and decided to help him home. Yoon-suk and Jill, who happened to spot Park on the street, chased down the scammer until Heem helped catch him. They handed Park over to the police, though they might not recover Jade Pill's money. Surprisingly, Yoon-suk said she was willing to let go of the money because they could learn from the experience. Yoon-suk and Jade Pill were happy to learn that Junwoo, who had been drunk and asleep on the couch, was Heem's boyfriend. The next morning, Junwoo felt embarrassed about staying over at Heem's house the previous night and having breakfast with her family. However, Juk Kong and Ju-young expressed that they didn't mind at all and supported Junwoo's relationship with their sister. At school, the students were in an uproar after an anonymous message revealed that Suene was the one who spread the bullying video of Juk Kong. Many students were outraged because Suene had betrayed her friendship with Ju-young. Not wanting to face her classmates' taunts, Suene chose to skip school, even though Juk Kong tried to stop her. A few days later, after Juk Kong passed her makeup exam, Sojun took her to a restaurant and confessed that he liked a girl who already had a boyfriend. Unfortunately, Juk Kong didn't realize that the girl Sojun was talking about was herself. Another day, when Suho went on a date with Juk Kong, he accidentally left his phone at home and didn't know that Jun had been hospitalized due to a ruptured blood vessel. When Sojun got the news from Jun's friend, he rushed to pick up Suho, who had to leave for America. Suho asked Sojun to look after Juk Kong while he was away in America. Sojun stayed in touch with Juk Kong, occasionally checking in. A month later, Suho told Juk Kong he was coming back to Korea, but he had to cancel his plans because Jun's condition worsened. With Sojun busy taking care of Jun, he and Juk Kong rarely communicated. Eventually, Suho ended his relationship with Juk Kong, telling her he would be staying longer in America and asking her not to wait for him. This left Juk Kong heartbroken. Later, while at a comic book store, Juk Kong saw a note from Suho about going to a special place when the first snow fell. Reading the note, she finally realized that Suho was her childhood friend. A year later, Juk Kong took the college entrance exam and sent Suho one last message. She told him that she was getting closer to her dreams and hoped he would find happiness in America. Sometime later, Juk Kong started an internship at a salon owned by a famous makeup artist named Chen, who often worked with celebrities. Chen frequently annoyed Juk Kong, especially because Juk Kong had a crush on Sojun, and Chen kept insisting that she arrange a meeting with him. One evening, Juk Kong and her high school friends gathered at a bar for a reunion. Sojun was there too, keeping a close eye on Juk Kong as he had promised Suho. However, he still didn't have the courage to ask her out. As the night went on, Sojun eventually took the drunk Juk Kong home, and Yoon-suk allowed him to stay at their house. Juk Kong's parents supported her relationship with Sojun, especially since Sojun had a promising career as a singer and was preparing for his latest album. After confiding in Churong, Sojun, who had been hiding his feelings for 2 years, decided to confess his love to Juk Kong. After band practice, he invited her to dinner the next day. Meanwhile, Ju Young and Go Won were happy to officially start dating after being accepted into college. Hyung and Jun Woo were busy planning their wedding. The next day, Sojun picked up Juk Kong and took her to dinner, where he finally told her how he felt and asked if she would consider dating him. Juk Kong began to see Sojun as more than a friend, but she was still torn because she hadn't fully gotten over Suho, especially since his belongings were still neatly kept in her room. Later, Yoon-suk and others helped Jun-woo plan a romantic proposal for Hyung, though Hyung was indifferent. Jun-woo informed her about the surprise and asked her to act touched to make him happy. Meanwhile, Juk Kong went to a place to enjoy the first snowfall, trying to clear her mind of memories of Suho. To her surprise, she saw Suho there. He told her he had just returned to Korea and came to his favorite place from the past. Although Juk Kong hadn't fully moved on from Suho, she told him she didn't expect him to return and was planning to leave. Suddenly, Juk Kong felt stomach pain, and Suho had to take her to the hospital. After she regained consciousness, she was reluctant to see Suho, so she secretly slipped out of her hospital room. While Suho was handling administrative matters at the agency office, Hyung told Sojun that Suho had returned to Korea after Jun's health improved. Sojun was surprised, especially since Suho hadn't contacted him yet. Later, Jun-woo's romantic proposal didn't go as planned because Hung arrived before the surprise was ready. Curious about Suho's return, Sojun went to Suho's house to greet him. They had a conversation, and Sojun mentioned that his relationship with Juk Kong was getting closer, but Suho didn't believe it. He intended to ask Juk Kong directly when he met her at the salon where she worked. After Suho left to buy snacks for Juk Kong, she thought he had gone home. So, she decided to go ice skating with Sojun. When Sojun saw Juk Kong had hurt herself, he helped her treat the wound, reminding her of when Suho had done the same. After taking her home, Sojun hugged Juk Kong in front of Suho, showing that Juk Kong was now with him. While having a drink with Suho, Sojun lied, saying Juk Kong had been his girlfriend for a while, but Suho still couldn't fully believe it. The next day, Juk Kong met with Sojun to turn down his feelings for her. However, before she could speak, Sojun got a call saying Suho was about to fly back to America. Thinking Suho was leaving, Juk Kong rushed to his house in tears, believing he was really leaving. Sojun meanwhile lied about Suho's departure to see if Juk Kong still had feelings for him. When he saw her rushing off, Sojun realized that Suho would always have a special place in her heart. Heartbroken, Sojun cried alone, feeling the pain of unrequited love. On the other hand, Suho was happy that Juk-kung didn't want to lose him, even though he had never planned to leave for America. Suho took Juk-kung home and promised to always be there for her. Juk-kung smiled happily, knowing that she had regained his love. Meanwhile, Sojun finally accepted Juk-kung's rejection and focused on managing his album and career. A month later, frustrated with Chen's attitude, Juk-kung expressed her anger, leading to an argument. Swain suddenly appeared to defend Juk-kung by confronting Chen's manager physically. Juk-kung was surprised because she hadn't expected to see Swaini again after her sudden disappearance 3 years ago. Swaini explained that she hadn't continued her studies but instead had done volunteer work abroad. She returned to Korea to apologize to Juk-kung for her past mistakes. Juk-kung's career as a makeup artist continued to shine, especially as she worked with artists from Move Entertainment. Meanwhile, Hung became busier with her wedding preparations until her big day finally arrived. Juk-kung took on the role of being her sister's makeup artist. There was a funny moment when Hyung's head got stuck in a piece of metal while trying to retrieve a wedding ring under the table. Despite this mishap, Hung's wedding went ahead and was attended by many Sabum High School alumni. The bride even recited her vows with the metal piece still around her neck. Towards the end of the series, Juk-kung was entrusted with the task of being Sojun's makeup artist for his album release event, featuring songs composed by both Seon and Suho. Sojun delivered an incredible performance, and many predicted his album would be a huge success. Meanwhile, the friendship between Sojun and Suho continued to grow. Sojun believed that true friendship was one of the most precious things in life.